This is 5th grade math, and the lesson is called Simplifying Fractions. It's also known as putting a fraction in simplest form or reducing the fraction. Okay, if you look at this fraction 6/8, it is not in simplest form. There is an equivalent fraction that uses smaller numbers than 6 and 8. Now in this first exercise, they're giving you a big clue here. We've done this before when we did equivalent fractions to get from 6 to 3 by multiplication or division, and we're only looking for division here because we're reducing. We're making the numbers smaller. So in this case, you divide by 2. And if you divide by 2 on the top, you also divide by 2 on the bottom, giving you a 4 to put in this box. So what they're saying here is that 6/8 and 3/4 are equivalent fractions, but if you've been told to simplify, put it in simplest form, or reduce it, you want the smallest possible numbers to express that fraction. So 3/4 has been simplified. Okay, let's do number 11. Again, they gave you both denominators, and you can see that you have to divide by 4 to get from 12 to 3. So you divide by 4 up here also. 8 divided by 4 is 2. So 2/3 is in simplest form. It is reduced. It has been simplified. Number 16. 24 divided by 3 equals 28, and 15 divided by 3 equals 5. So 5/8 is the simplified form of 15/24. All right, now this is going to be considerably more difficult. The directions are to write it in simplest form, but they didn't give you anything to help you. You have to figure out what the GCF is. Okay, so this is the work that I would show. 8/10 divided by fraction line equals fraction line. Okay, so when you look at 8 and 10, what number are they both divisible by? Well, if they're both even numbers, 8 and 10 are both even numbers, so they are divisible by 2. Is there anything higher that they are divisible by? Well, the way to really figure that out is to find the greatest common factor of 8 and 10. So you have to list all the factors. 1 times 8 is 8, 2 times 4 is 8, and there isn't anything else. 1 times 10, and 2 times 5. So the biggest thing that they have in common is 2. So we're going to divide by 2/2. 8 divided by 2 is 4, and 10 divided by 2 is 5. So our simplified answer is 4/5. One way you can tell that you for sure got it in simplest form, this doesn't happen every time, but if it does happen, then you know you're done. 4 and 5 are consecutive numbers. They come right after each other when you count, and so it cannot be simplified any more than that. Now, you don't necessarily have to write out all of this finding the GCF. I'm hoping that you can do some of that in your head. Okay, number 26. I'd write the fraction divided by fraction line equals fraction line. I'm hoping that you recognize 9/18 as being 1/2, and if you do, that's fine. You can put that. But 9 divided by 9 equals 1, and 18 divided by 9 equals 2, giving you 1/2. So I'm hoping this is recognizable to you. If not, at least you recognize that 9 and 18 are both 9s, and that's why we're dividing by 9/9. Number 32. Every time divided by fraction line equals fraction line. The biggest number you could possibly divide anything by is how big that numerator is. 2 is the greatest common factor of 2 and 8. It's not going to be any higher than that. 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. So your answer is 1/4. This one might be a little bit trickier. 20 and 24. What number can you count by, and you will come to 20, and you count by that same number, and you will come to 24? Well, those are both 4s. You might have said 2, but 4 is actually the greatest common factor. 20 divided by 4 is 5, and 24 divided by 4 is 6. Now, do you see again how 5 and 6 are consecutive numbers? So you know for sure that you got it into lowest terms. Here's another clue that you're in lowest terms. If there is a 1 on the top, it can't go any lower. Now, I want to look at number 38 again. Sometimes this happens. There's the problem. And somebody says, I can divide that by 2 over 2. And you go 20 divided by 2 is 10, and 24 divided by 2 is 12. That is an equivalent fraction to 20 over 24, but is it in simplest form? Here's a clue that it's not. If both of the numbers are even, it can still be divided by 2 over 2 again. 10 divided by 2 is 5, and 12 divided by 2 is 6. Do you see how I got the same answer I got before? I divided it by 2, and I divided it by 2, and that was the same result as having divided it by 4, okay? So sometimes you don't get it to lowest terms right away if you don't actually pick the GCF to divide by. But that's okay if it takes 2 steps, but it saves you some trouble if you find the greatest common factor.